others in line. So when the cookie crumbles, the best piece they will find. Oh, we're racing to a red light. It's right there before our eyes, somehow hidden in plain sight. We're all racing to a red light. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to swear free. I'm just as bad as you, and sometimes words you see. But all this crazy right, I'm looking for the breaks. Come join me in the search, I think that's what it takes. Oh, we're racing to a red light. It's right there before our eyes, somehow hidden in plain sight. We're all racing to a red Oh, we're racing to a red light, and it's right there before our eyes, somehow hidden in plain sight.
So welcome back everybody, Mike here. It is a beautiful afternoon. It's probably 45, 50 degrees, maybe not quite that warm, but it is perfect out here. And I'm up at the old apple orchard. And if you remember, over the Labor Day weekend, I did some clearing up here. I did a couple videos on that. Had an excavator, I dug a burn pit, and I was just basically expanding this area. I have a little food plot up here, and about 90% of the property is all woods. So there's a few areas that I'm working on to kind of open up a little bit, get some more, nice habitat for the deer and the turkeys, things like that. And it just looks nice, and I like doing it. So today I'm just clearing some of the smaller trees around the perimeter. This winter I'll keep expanding this area. I'd like to end up with, an 1.75 acres, maybe even 2 acres like this. Now, if you watch this channel, you know that I cut a lot of trees. I cut a lot of firewood. The firewood's mostly dead trees or trees that are leaning or areas that I'm clearing like this. But every time I have a video where I'm cutting firewood or that chainsaw is running, I'll get comments that people want to know why I don't replant trees. And some of the comments would be, I'd like to see you replanting some of the trees that you're taking. Well, basically we don't do that here, and I'll explain why. See, here in the east, you don't have to replant trees. The only time you want to plant trees is if you want to change, the species of the tree after a big clear cut. That would be the only reason I could think to do it, at least here. I mean, you could stop cutting your grass here in Pennsylvania where I live, and in about 5 years you would have about a 10-foot brushy mess that you couldn't walk through. 20 years you'd probably have a bunch of 8 and 10-inch cherry and maple trees. 50 years you'd have a lot bigger cherry trees, and you'd have a bunch of oak trees. And in 100 years you'd have a huge oak forest with a big canopy and nothing underneath of it. See, trees disperse their seeds many different ways. Like the maple trees, we used to call them whirlybirds or helicopters. They're like a little aerodynamic wing, and as they fall from the tree, they blow to a different area. Many of the nut trees, like the oak trees, things like that, the squirrels will pick up those nuts and they'll go bury them somewhere or put them in a hole somewhere and forget about them. You get oak trees popping up. But really around here, the best thing you can do if you want a lot of trees is to actually do some thinning, especially in the bigger woods. Now, I like the looks of the big oaks, and it's really a nice area. You got all the acorns, the deer like it, the squirrels like it. But, if you take one of those big oak trees down, in a matter of a few years, you'll see a bunch of other little ones growing up around it. Because with that big canopy, all those smaller trees don't have a chance to grow. So around here, there is really no need to replant. Nature just does that on its own. And I'm going to show you a few areas here on the property. And I touched on this in some previous videos, but I want to just go into a little bit more detail so you know why I don't replant trees. I'm actually on my mom's property now. Her property joins right up against mine. But this whole area, this whole hillside down in here, now when my dad was a kid, they used to small game hunt in here, and there used to be a lot of pheasants around here. And then probably when he was a teenager, they planted a bunch of pine trees for Christmas trees. And all those Christmas trees, they were too close together, and they ended up dying. There's still a few remaining. But if you look, there's some really decent sized cherry trees, maple trees, oak trees, all that down in here that, you know, 60 years ago, it was just a field. Now, when I was a kid, like I said, this was all an apple orchard up here. And before I started clearing this area out down here, it looked like this up here. Now, only 10, 12 years ago, you couldn't even walk through this up here. It was so thick and nasty. And there's still some areas where it's very thick, but as the trees get a little bit bigger, get a little bit of a canopy on them, then all that underbrush kind of goes away. But if you look in here, there's a lot of cherries, there's some oaks. I am 51 years old, and like I'm saying, when I was a kid, this was all apple trees with neat rows in between them all. Now I'm going to head over the other hill, show you something over there. You see that field over there? Yeah, see, I don't see it either. But when I was a kid, we used to sit here. I'm in my mother's yard right now, and we used to watch deer over there. But there's a field on the other side of that section of woods. So I know I'm showing my age a little bit, but yeah, that was all just a brushy area down in there across that driveway. And you could look right over to that other hill and watch deer every evening out there eating. So this is that patch of woods I just showed you from my mom's place. Now I'm 51 years old, and when I was a kid, none of this was here. We've got some maples and some pretty decent sized cherries. There's still a lot of underbrush in here, but each year it gets less and less as the canopy gets bigger on the top. So like I said earlier, here in Pennsylvania, if you quit cutting your lawn, in about 40 years, it would look like this. Now this area down here, this is probably the most mature woods that we have down here by the pond. This area here, we have a bunch of white oak and red oak. If you look, there's a bunch of these little oak trees growing. Most of these won't make it though, but what happens is some of the tops will blow out of these, and whenever anything happens that allows a little bit of sunlight in, then these little trees take off. Now I know it's important in other parts of the country and other parts of the world to replant trees if you're cutting trees down. Here in Western Pennsylvania, that is not needed at all. The only time you would do that is if you're trying to change the species of the tree growing there. Because if you just let nature take its course around here, they all come back. But anyway, comment below, tell me where you're from, how you do things, and if you enjoy these videos, please click subscribe and hit the like button and share them with your friends. Have a good week. Thanks.